In a shocking 11th-hour decision, Canadian immigration officials have revoked approval for Meghan Markle's travel visa ahead of the 2025 Invictus Games in Vancouver, essentially banning the Duchess of Sussex from stepping foot in the nation over unresolved allegations she serially bullied and mistreated former royal staff. The move represents an unprecedented rebuke against the former working royal whose anticipated presence was meant to help rally and inspire wounded warriors from across the Commonwealth participating in the Paralympic-style competition founded by her husband Prince Harry. According to documentation obtained by the Canadian Investigative Program, W5, high-ranking bureaucrats within the Ministry of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship ultimately sided with copious human resources complaints painting Meghan as a toxic boss propagating entrenched hostilities throughout Kensington Palace ranks. Several past and present royal aides recounted disturbing accounts of suffering sustained psychological trauma, career sabotage, and harsh mistreatment that senior leadership previously opted minimizing rather than forcefully confronting the alleged rude abuses. Given the credible evidence compiled that this individual demonstrably condoned systematically fomenting abusive workplace harassment and discrimination towards domestic servants, it simply wouldn't comport with Canada's humanitarian values welcoming Ms. Markle's participation representing a familial monarchy with all the presumptive noble leadership credentials involved, reasoned Minister Ahmed Hassan in communication explaining the stunning visa revocation. Consistent with upholding highest moral standards aligned protecting vulnerable workers against undue cruelties whenever reliably substantiated, we cannot consciously enable honoring an accused serial perpetrator unremorsefully victimizing subordinates potentially on Canadian soil. Not without grave investigations first achieving legally conclusive accountability resolutions, such activities are anathema contradicting this nation's identity legislated strengthening protections for the oppressed. The Invictus snub followed sustained lobbying from palace insiders demanding Canadian intergovernmental cooperation on behalf of former royal staffers traumatized but largely powerless confronting a celebrity superior. Several had apparently pleaded sympathetic officials permanently blacklisting Meghan from comfortable border crossing precipitated by her status and influence defying standard workplace deterrence protocols. These dedicated civil servants repeatedly attempted voicing egregious mistreatment up-chain but faced stonewalling institutional cover-up campaigns downplaying the aggregate abuse's severity, said Marnie Chubinski, spokeswoman for Palace Aids Advocacy, representing complainant interests. Many experienced PTSD-type mental anguish over manufactured indignities, vulgarities, impossible standards designed setting them up disparagingly failing humiliating disciplinary threats, then had leadership belittle invalidating correlated traumas. Canadian lawmakers indicated a tipping point likely occurred following the blockbuster testimonies from the Sussex's former global press secretary alleging his tragic experience becoming a scapegoat targeted for severance in retaliation for notifying human resources over bullying grievances. Jason Knopf's testimony, first revealed in Buckingham Palace's controversial independent probe and then expanded in subsequent interviews, depicted an alleged pattern of Sussex's mistreating subordinates tasked enforcing unpopular protocols frustrating their desired publicity narratives. For too long, we've witnessed these intolerable abuses continue metastasizing without accountability undermining organizational integrity as senior stakeholders unethically enable the rot, said Deborah Eisenstadt, pro bono counsel aiding the complainants. Now facing consequences alongside borders enforcing standards against suspected abusers profiled exploiting power imbalances targeting underlings with cruelty impunity. While Markle has consistently disputed claims depicting her notorious beyond reason work ethics, others accuse the Duchess of exhibiting archetypal narcissistic traits of resenting enforced deference and boundaries. Claims suggested she vented perceived frustrations obstructing desired special treatment through uncompromising belittling against inadequately reverential staff. Throughout the institution and beyond, everyone was already conscious how Ms. Markle's notoriously demanding perfectionist leadership style contrasted from historical precedents, but people lacked full preparedness for somebody allegedly manifesting such megalomaniacal rage dismissing ordinary workplace decencies enabling underlings enforcing rules, said Norman Baker, royal correspondent recounting dismissed staffers' apparent terror facing her behind palace walls unchecked. Hers grew a reputation for cruel relentlessness over trivial impositions that would break weaker psyches rather than consider adjusting disproportionate affirmation need impulses above organizational responsibilities. Yet every attempt reporting hostile behaviors upwards was obstructed by paralysis avoiding credible accountability. Others suggested the palace anticipated diplomatic complications once Canada inevitably weighed its obligation legislatively addressing serious human resources grievances through constitutional responsibilities upholding dignity in the workplace protections. The Crown essentially exported intolerable workplace toxicity spawned through entitlement and privilege once Canadian governance functionally inherited employment disputes afflicted by hierarchical asymmetries through the Markles' arrival, analyzed Toronto Labour attorney Michelle Keating. At some point, administrative bodies established safeguarding protections enjoyed by their citizens cannot forego pursuing corroborated incidents besmirching their nation's ethical principles enshrining universal respect for the most vulnerable. The developments fueled speculation whether the visa controversy indeed marked a calculated pressure campaign pitting palace influencers exploiting international bureaucracies for maximum leverage against the renegade Duchess. Others theorized Canadian authorities likely maneuvered strategic opportunities neutralizing potential security risks posed by her presence triggering inevitable protest conflicts across partisan lines throughout the typically apolitical sporting events festivities. Clearly the palace utilized shadow diplomacy activating sympathetic emplacements flexibly freezing out adversaries via our Commonwealth institutional infrastructures enabling soft power counterstrikes constraining opposition forces emasculating British sovereign apparition persisting far exceeding hard territorial bound obsolescence, claimed Gordon Shillingsworth, veteran foreign policy consultant who served both UK and Canadian national governments. The pretext lent convenient impetus for interdicting hostile entry by an agent perceived destabilizing risks toward state functions and national unity, neutralizing polarizing liabilities absent overt confrontations projected expanding her relentless antagonisms aggravating needless socio-political vulnerabilities counterproductive to mutually beneficial agendas.